In the lesson, we looked at style and diction and how it is appropriate in different situations. In this part of the lesson, we are going to look at some letters written to different people for different purposes, identify the styles and diction used, and see why it is appropriate. Let's look at our first example. This letter was written by a soldier in 1861 before going to fight in the Battle of Bull Run. The letter begins, "My very dear Sarah, the indications are very strong that we shall move in a few days, perhaps tomorrow. Lest I should not be able to write you again, I feel impelled to write a few lines that may fall under your eye when I shall be no more." I have already told you that this letter was written in 1861, but had I not told you, you could easily look closely at the diction and work it out for yourself that this letter was not written recently. For example, the word lest. The word lest is an old-fashioned word meaning in case. The writer also talks about feeling impelled to write. Once again, here is an old-fashioned word. The expression "may fall under your eye." May fall under your eye is also an old-fashioned expression for "you may see this letter." So now, obviously the soldier wants to tell his wife certain things just in case he dies in the battlefield, but he also does not want to upset her or alarm her. Look at the final lines. He talks about how she may only see the letter when I shall be no more. Here he has used a euphemism for death. A euphemism is a pleasant word or phrase for something that is not pleasant or polite to talk about. Instead of directly saying, "when I am dead," which is a bit harsh, he uses a softer expression, characteristic of intimate and more informal situations. If he were writing to his superior, he is likely to be more direct and say something like, "we are likely to die." Let's look at another extract from the same letter. "Sarah, my love for you is deathless. It seems to bind me with mighty cables that nothing but omnipotence could break." Notice the intimate style that has been used in this letter. The soldier makes his feelings vividly clear to his wife. He refers to her by her first name. Even though he has already greeted her in the opening of the letter, he wants to reaffirm that the love he is speaking about applies only to her. The soldier has also used vivid imagery to describe his love for his wife. Instead of saying something cliché like, "I will love you forever," he says, "My love for you is deathless." This is a strong metaphor that likens his love to something that cannot die. He continues his description of his love by likening it to cables that no one but omnipotence, meaning God, could break. Again, this creates a strong mental picture, and the use of such a fresh metaphor makes his love for his wife seem even more genuine. The soldier concludes his letter by saying, "But oh Sarah, if the dead can come back to this earth and flit unseen around those they love, I shall always be with you in the brightest days and in the darkest nights. Always, always." Did you notice how the soldier once again addresses his wife by her name, adding to the intimacy of the style? Look at the imagery that he then creates. He talks about being able to flit around. This is an interesting choice of diction because it makes the soldier sound as if he's a moth, as this is the type of creature that you would normally associate with the verb flit, to flit. If he had chosen a word like haunt, which is associated with spirits of dead people and the implication of death, it would have sounded scary, as opposed to the comforting image of life that flit gives. Let's look at the imagery in the line, I shall always be with you in the brightest days and in the darkest nights. Not only are the words brightest and darkest direct opposites, implying that the soldier will always be with his wife, but they have connotations or associations with good and bad. Do you recall what connotations are? Connotations are the positive or negative associations that words imply. Thus, the diction has been carefully chosen to give the impression that the soldier will never abandon his wife, no matter what the circumstances, good or bad. The extract ends with the repetition of the word always, always. By repeating the same word, the soldier is reinforcing that he will never leave her. Repetition, when used sparingly, is a powerful method of conveying a message. So remember what we learned in our lesson, that there is a different style and diction for each occasion. Here, our last letter is quite formal for a letter being written from a husband to a wife. The formality is created by the use of formal vocabulary and the style. In this case, it is appropriate due to the seriousness of the matter being discussed. I am sure that you will agree that this letter was beautifully written and very romantic. Sadly, I must tell you that the soldier was killed fighting in the Battle of Bull Run just a week after writing this letter to his wife. But I'm sure you would agree that she would have been comforted by his beautiful images and words. The second example that we're going to look at is far more recent than our last letter. I'm sure you have seen the Dilbert cartoon that appears in the newspapers. When the creator, cartoonist Scott Adams, was trying to get his cartoons published, he wrote to another cartoonist, Jack Cassidy, for some advice. We are going to look at the reply that Jack Cassidy sent him. Scott Adams credits this reply with helping to launch his career. The note reads, "Dear Scott, the reason I'm dropping you this note is to again encourage you to submit your ideas to various publications. I hope you have already done so and are on the way to making a few bucks and having some fun too." Although the cartoonists did not know one another at this stage, Jack Cassidy manages to create a friendly and chatty style. Let's see how he does this. Firstly, he addresses Scott Adams by his first name only. Then he uses an informal style by using words like note instead of letter and a few bucks instead of some money. His tone is also very encouraging. He talks about how he hopes that Scott has taken his suggestions, and he repeats his advice by suggesting that Scott take his ideas to various publications. His note then continues, "Sometimes encouragement in the funny business of graphic humor is hard to come by. That's why I'm encouraging you to hang in there and keep drawing." Look at how Jack Cassidy has used a pun, which is a play on words, to make a serious point. He mentions that graphic humor is a funny business. This clever choice of diction makes the point that whilst cartoons may be humorous, breaking into the business of animation is actually not that easy, because the business is strange and peculiar. Thus the choice of the words funny business. The expression "hang in there" is colloquial and informal, yet most people would know exactly what the author means, and again it adds to the friendly and encouraging tone. The note concludes with the following: "I wish you lots of luck, sales, and good drawing. Sincerely, Jack." This closing is sincere, and the writer genuinely wants Scott Adams to succeed. Jack Cassidy again creates a friendly style by signing his first name only. Scott Adams has said that this simple note was enough to encourage him to try to get his cartoons published again. Why was this note so successful? He said that although various newspapers and magazines that he had approached had encouraged him to try again, the typed, impersonal and very formal letters had not nearly been as inspiring as one brief, friendly, encouraging, handwritten note. This section helped to illustrate different styles in diction in the context of two very different letters. In the next lessons in this series, we'll be looking at friendly and formal letters more in depth. I hope as a result of this lesson that you will now be able to use the appropriate style and diction in letters of your own.